Penguin Random House Audio presents Crush, a Novel by Ada Calhoun. Read for you by Robin Marika. For the Love of My Life. Every man has had one or two moments of extraordinary experience, has met his soul, has thought of something which he never afterwards forgot, and which revised all his speech and molded all his forms of thought. Ralph Waldo Emerson. At the edge of the abyss, he clings to pencils. Elias Canetti. 1. To crave and to have. We don't have to do anything, he said. The first time I played 7 Minutes in Heaven at a party, I was locked in a closet with a boy I had a crush on. Romance in that era often involved vaguely sociopathic party games. By the light of a blue bulb, I could see my classmates' wide-open eyes. I haven't kissed anybody before, he mumbled, with the shame usually reserved for having killed someone. Me either, I said, though I'd conducted a frame-by-frame analysis of the garage scene in Some Kind of Wonderful. I reached out and found his face. His hand settled on my waist. He was breathing quietly, like he feared waking a light sleeper. And then my mouth was on his. Soon we were pulling each other close, pushing hanging coats aside and sending empty hangers skidding across the dowel. We didn't know what to do, but our bodies did. Then the door whooshed open. We squinted into the rec room lights, Whitney Houston on the boombox. Our classmates, awaiting their turns, poured soda from 2-liter bottles and trailed chips through ranch dip. Thanks to that poorly chaperoned middle school party, I discovered a whole new category of person, separate from friends and family. Boys who would kiss me in closets. I liked making out with them too much, though. Later that year, I was called a slut for kissing, in the span of 3 months, 3 boys, who, granted, formed a significant percentage of the class, given the size of our school. The social retribution for having succumbed to lust taught me one of the highest stakes lessons of womanhood. Desire must be negotiated like furniture that's too big for the room. As I gradually rebuilt my reputation as a good girl, someone who was craved without craving, the lab report headline became, "How can I get what I want without actually having it?" In high school, I acquired an affable, stable boyfriend with whom I could enjoy state-sanctioned adolescent monogamy. I knew I wanted more, and I also knew that bad things happened to women who tried to find it. In my women's literature elective, I underlined a passage in Marilyn Robinson's Housekeeping. It described just the sort of elegant self-denial to which I aspired. To crave and to have are as like as a thing and its shadow. For when does a berry break upon the tongue as sweetly as when one longs to taste it? Wanting could be as good as having, even better? If true, that would solve a lot of problems. By college, I'd found a way to have without holding, and that was flirting. This created energy without causing trouble, like a rolling boil in a lidded pot. I had a few crushes going all the time. There'd be 1 or 2 on the back burner simmering, a few in the freezer that could be stuck in the oven at 350 and ready to go in 30 minutes. A gift for devoting time and energy to not getting what I wanted is nothing to be proud of, so I don't think it's bragging to say that I became extremely good at it. My astronomy survey course professor called me on the phone at night to talk about space and complain about his girlfriend. A news anchor texted me song lyrics while he was live on the air. I wasn't good at sports, cooking, singing, penmanship, or decorating, but I could look at a man in a way that made him drop his papers. If fandom involves the fantasy that someone speaking to millions of people is actually just talking to you, that sense of specialness is also the gift of a crush. A hand held under a table, a look exchanged at a party, made more sublime by the excruciating pleasure of not letting it go any further. This was true when I was single, and truer when I met, in my senior year of college, the man who would become my husband. I felt lucky to have found Paul, a basketball forward who found time both to record his own music and to make sculptures in the school's pottery studio. With the sturdy good looks of the clean-cut former athlete who still goes running twice a week, he'd always been confident enough to find my crushes charming rather than a threat. And so I could enjoy other men's attention and still avoid betrayal. "You've got a Lamborghini engine for flirting," he said. After I'd chatted at a party with a friend of his, Paul looked at me with admiration. "Jesus, what did you do to him? He never talks. But with you, suddenly he's a Civil War general," all in a thick Southern accent. "Well, I declare, milady, might I have the great privilege of accompanying you to the Orange Blossom Cotillion?" I'm not saying I'm physically attractive. Let's get that out of the way right now, because that's another important lesson of womanhood. Never act like you think you're hot. Appearance and seduction are unrelated anyway. Plenty of stunning people can't flirt. Supposedly ugly people seduce the world all the time. When it comes to sex appeal, confidence trumps looks. Maybe models rule Hollywood, but the rest of the world belongs to the self-assured and medium pretty. For a long time, flirting made me feel more curious and excited and ambitious, engaged, interested, available for friendship. I felt seen in new ways. Portals opened to other worlds and new playlists. Sometimes it was a tightrope act, keeping crushes from becoming serious, harnessing the heat they provided without becoming consumed by it. But I had done my 10,000 hours of practice and was an expert. The skills served me well as a reporter and then as a ghostwriter. I also wrote books under my own name, some of which sold well enough to warrant book tours, but not quite well enough to let me afford nice furniture. The main thing I'd learned from my day job: people like being asked questions. That was most of what I did all day, interviewing people. When occasionally interviewed myself, I'd try to turn inquiries back on the questioner, so that by the end, I'd know as much about them as they did about me. There's a song from 1978 called "Another Girl, Another Planet." On one book tour, I listened to that song every day. I thought of myself as a clutch baseball player, with that song as my walk-up music. Originally by the Only Ones, but covered often, including by my favorite band, The Replacements, the song is probably about heroin. All songs from 1978 are about heroin, but I like to think it's about crushes, too. You get under my skin. I don't find it irritating. Years ago, I pitched a book on the cultural history of the crush. No editor wanted it, despite my calling it a cultural history, which at the time felt like a publishing skeleton key. Bookstore tables teemed with cultural histories of crying, cheese, military formations, salt. But everyone I pitched said the same thing. Are you insane? Crushes break your heart. They're dangerous, destabilizing, weird. I said they must be doing it wrong. Crushes were how you stayed a little bit in love with the world, even though you had a husband. They let you sort of have more than one man without society condemning you. They let berries break upon your tongue even when you had no berries. And how safe a feeling it was inside one relationship to imagine other men stacked around protectively, like sandbags. By cultivating a deep bench of break glass in case of emergency suitors, I was prepared for romantic disaster, just as I stayed primed to administer aid by re-upping my Red Cross certification every 2 years and carrying Narcan. I could feel longing, feel it hard, without believing there were implications. I scoffed at people who were led around by their feelings like leashed dogs, and I did not feel deprived or mourn what I lacked. In my fantasies, as long as those other people stayed in my head, I could be voracious while remaining faithful. I wasn't the kind of person who cheated, so only this Shadowland was available, and it was enough. I felt lucky that, unlike so many of my friends, I was still sleeping with my husband.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?